Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How you doing?
I am excellent. I'm so glad you could join me.
I'm excited to join you actually. So thank you for having me.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So, congratulations. How does it feel to now be looked at as a director?
It feels good. It feels really good, and it's a new responsibility because I feel like the people that are offering me directing jobs are people that I don't really want to disappoint. So it's just an added pressure. You
Okay.
know, a new level of fear.
Right.
I've worked for them as an actor, but I've never really thought about working for them as a director, and I'm afraid that messing up as a director could result in hurting my acting career. But that's the imposter syndrome kicking in.
Right. So, as you said, you feel different about being an actor versus being a director because you've been acting for a pretty long time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I've been doing it for about 20 years. Yeah, 20 years is fair. And so the director thing is different because as an actor, you learn your stuff. You might have to do some rehearsals and you show up and you do your best rendition of what you think there is, and you take information from the director. Directing, every single aspect of that film, from sound design. I don't know if have you seen the movie by any chance?
Not yet. I watched some of it and I actually bad. I definitely watched some of it, but not all of it yet. Sorry.
It wasn't your cup of tea.
No, actually, it was funny and I was just like I had so much going on this week, but I definitely plan on watching it.
Okay, because I was just going to try to make the point that in the film it goes from there's like this time lapse from night to day, and if you listen, you'll hear crickets, and then it'll morph into the sound of birds. The direct
Okay.
the director's involved with that, the sound design. The director's involved with the wardrobe. The direct so much. It's just a different level of responsibility. That I feel like it's just look. Let me move over, man. We got some things out here called wasps
Oh,
that are not playing around. Okay,
so
so
do
anyway,
not jump up because I might have to laugh if you start running around. I'm sorry. You're being
oh,
recorded, so I'll have that footage.
I ain't scared to fight on camera.
So when you say that being a director, you're responsible for everything. So did you know who you wanted in the movie? So we see Regina Hall, Tammy Roman. Was that something you had to cast for, or did you already have an idea of who you wanted to enlist to be in the movie?
Well, I had pitched it to Regina Hall ages ago, and I don't know if Regina actually uh, had remembered it, but I had been pitching it to her for years while I was writing it. I've got like 4 screenplays that I'm proud of, and I've written her as the female lead for all of them.
Oh,
You know, what I'm saying? I always like writing movies where like you don't have to have the women give it up. You know what I mean? In
right,
order in order to be a yeah. So and Regina's perfect for that because she's street and sophisticated at the same time, and
right.
she's tough, and she's very tough, but very nurturing at the same time. And
Okay.
so I love those qualities. And so anyway, uh, yeah, I knew her, but I found this person called Bonnet Chronicle, this character called Bonnet Chronicles online. And so I got my team to reach out. I was like, I emailed her and I was like, yo, my name's Romany Malco. I'm trying to make this film. It's a low budget film. I think you'd be perfect for it. And I emailed her, and then she actually got back to my team. Ouch. She actually got back to my team, and we ended up doing an audition over Skype, just like people are
Oh,
doing now, maybe even over Zoom or Skype. And then uh, I knew right then and there that she was the one. And then as far as the other people go, we auditioned everybody. We auditioned people who'd never acted before. We auditioned people who'd only done commercials. We auditioned everyone. And I just made sure to take time with every single person. And I got the casting agent, Esther Casting, to schedule it accordingly so that I was able to just I didn't care. Now, I want people who have good work ethic and who
right.
understand the business and who have paid their dues, but I also want to give people a break. And so Regina Hall was the star power that we needed. And Tammy Roman was a different type of star power because she's very famous in the reality TV world and very
Right.
prominent online. And then I had my own version of star power. And the rest of it, I was like, man, let's feed some folks. Let's get some talented folks in here who are hungry,
Right.
you know?
Right. That's a great strategy. Now, Tijuana Jackson, where did this name come from?
Okay, well, I wanted to show dysfunction right out the gate. I wanted people to be like, damn, something's off about this, right? And I was really hesitant about the name because I thought that people would think it was a woman, but that was the point. It was like, yo, I want the mom, the mom. I want it to be like the mom wanted a girl.
Right.
And when I first created the character, one of the first things I said was, and I know y'all out there laughing about my name, but you know what I'm saying? So his mom wanted a girl, named him Tawana. And once he became of age, he was like, no, my name is Tijuana. You know, um, in fact, the story he tells, which is probably still online, is that his first trip to juvie, when he was getting processed, they called out his name, and everybody started smirking, and then he got self-conscious and was like, "It's pronounced Tijuana," like that. And anyway, never mind.
So we know that Tijuana Jackson is a former convict who wants to become a motivational speaker or becomes a motivational speaker. Where did that idea, like, what made you decide that, you know what, I want to, were you in prison at one point and wanted to be a motivational speaker? So give us that idea of.
No, no, it's really like it's so much. It's so deep. It's like I grew up in environments where brothers would go be in and out of jail, in and out of prison, and I saw how people not only the system but people would turn their backs on them. And I'm 51, so I'm talking back in the day,
Mhm.
and I just never had the heart to do that. So I always ended up hanging out with them dudes, going on double dates I ain't had no business being on, hanging out in hoods I ain't had no business being in, just mad, but it gave me an understanding of what they were going through and an empathy for their situation, because it really is difficult to find employment and even to find like acceptance in social circles outside of the social circles that got you in jail in the first place. And so I wanted to uh, show a dude who was entrepreneurial. And think about this: if no one's willing to hire you, right? And so all you can really do are menial jobs, but you have an entrepreneurial spirit. But often to start a business, you need capital. What's the easiest thing you can do?
Right.
You can talk. You can talk. And so it's a more common trajectory, for someone coming out of prison to position himself as an orator or a public speaker than people know. In fact,
Oh,
I've had a
really?
lot of people come to me and be like, this dude stole my story once the movie came out. But luckily, I got social proof. You know what I'm saying? This thing's been online since MySpace.
Okay.
Thank heaven. So they've been like, oh, but you got it right though. All right, I see you, but you got it right. You know. So yeah, that was one of the reasons, and then the main reason I created the character and put the character online, man, is because I just wanted to educate poor people in a way that I wasn't educated. I don't think poor
Right.
people, you come from a poor environment in the United States of America, and that automatically equates to a poorer education in most cases. So I want to use the character to teach people. I want to use the character to teach people the importance of investing, what investing means, self-awareness, understanding that we have these cognitive biases that pretty much keep us in this loop of being extremely counterproductive, and the importance of emotional fluency. Like, no one talked to me about this stuff growing up. And
Right.
so and then the funny thing is that if they did try to talk to me and they wasn't from where we were from, I really wasn't trying to hear them either.
Hmm.
Right.
Right.
So I created this character as a way of kind of like disarming people, making people laugh, and then slipping the lessons in at the same time.
Oh, wow. Now, we have a lot of inmates that write our magazine who actually write for our publication. What advice would you give them if they're, watching this film and they have all these dreams and not really knowing how to put the ball in motion to get it going?
Well, it really depends on your situation. But one thing that I have noticed is that a lot of us, and I don't know what their situation is, but a lot of us are really overlooking so much of the information that's available online, like legitimate education on how to pursue the different things that we want. But more than anything, man, I think it's important that, especially being someone coming out of prison, I think it's important to really hone in. It's your time now. It really is your time now. The country's becoming more aware of who you are and what your plight is like. Um, uh, my movie hopefully is helping to spread, a bit more awareness and generate empathy. And it's key, man, to really plug into your sense of purpose right now, and let that sense of purpose pretty much be your compass in regards to where you go and who you help and what communities you serve, as well as, any influence you can have on legislation that aids in getting, um, you know, uh, inmates their voting rights back and just their overall rights and benefit, and benefits as a citizen back, or, or restored, it would probably be a better term. And so it's your time, man. And I think it's important for you to parlay this awareness. I also think it's important for you to help raise awareness and also just really, really double down on that sense of purpose. And then I'll just clarify sense of purpose really quick. We've all been through some stuff. We've been through some dysfunction. Sometimes that dysfunction is what leads us to the point of being put away. And it's like, if you're able to identify where the root of that dysfunction is from, and you're able to like come to terms with your dark side and your pain, maybe you can help service other young people who are going through similar things that, they don't have to learn the hard way. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You know, and so anyway, that was, look, um, I don't think it's my place to necessarily speak on what inmates should or shouldn't do. But if I were to like just, uh, pass on my insight from what I've learned being around my dudes, and I don't know if you've seen the behind the scenes documentary of my movie. We had dudes we had dudes in there that had done 19. We had dudes that just got finished doing 10. Those are the people I was consulting to make it. Um, and so anyway, that would be my 2 cents.
Okay. Now, going back to the film, what was one of your favorite scenes from the movie?
Oh man, there's a lot of favorite scenes from the movie, but I love those little subtle, quiet moments when, Tammy Roman, who plays my sister, doesn't want to be in the film. She doesn't want to be in the documentary. And so I come home with my work, my character comes home with this tornado-like energy, and she's now occupying his space, occupying his room, and he never really stops to ask what's going on. And so we have this moment where him and her have a talk off camera. You can't hear nothing that they're saying, but you can see a transformation from her being so heavy to them coming to some kind of resolve. And I just love that. And it was all being done just kind of peeking through a window too. To me, I love stuff like that. Like if you look at every platform that the movie is for sale on, it's rated at 5. Every single one.
Mhm.
It's rated 5. And it's not like 3 or 4 reviews. It's hundreds of reviews. It's rated a 5. And 5 out of 5, to be clear. And I think that what people are taking away from it is that, oh wow, I didn't realize how much we as Black men in this country have to internalize. And maybe all that stuff that we internalize and all that stuff that we hold on to is killing us. Maybe it's derailing us and derailing our culture. And I think that people are giving me, if you read the reviews, people are they're giving more intelligent breakdowns and depictions of the movie than I could have articulated myself.
Oh, wow.
I'm actually borrowing from that to communicate with you now. But that's what the movie was about. The movie was about, a lot of times it's about a person who comes from a dysfunctional family. That dysfunction led to him having dysfunctional behavior abroad, meaning outside of his home, which led to him being incarcerated multiple times, and which eventually there's a certain lifestyle that you adapt to inside. And then he came out of prison trying to apply this lifestyle that he had learned inside of the prison. He hadn't learned the decorum. He hadn't learned the etiquette of an institutionalized person, hadn't learned the etiquette of being in civilian life again. And there's no real system. You've got the halfway house, but there's no real system in place to help in that transition realistically. And so here he is now mentoring tomorrow's future with a perspective that he learned inside the joint. And I'm sorry, but if you look around, whether you want to call it a stereotype or not, if you look around, That's a lot of, it's hypocritical, in fact, to speak about Black American history without speaking about the judicial system. It's hypocritical because we came here, and before we got here, we were incarcerated.
Right.
So I would say that what people are seem to be taking away from it is, wow, look at this dude, look at all these obstacles that reflect a lot of what goes on in our communities, and look at him consistently making light of the dark. So I would just say that for anyone who hasn't really come to terms with or tapped into their dark side, I'll be real, you probably don't want to see this film. It's not for you. This is for people who have a sense of of their darkness, and maybe even ownership of it, and as it maybe even started making light of their darkness. This is gonna be better suited for you, because if you ain't there, you damn sure ain't gonna enjoy this man making light of his darkness.
Right. Right. So are you an activist? You sound like you're pretty aware of what's going on.
Yeah, you know what? I really don't feel like I need to label myself an activist or anything. I just feel as though I just have a responsibility, um, of just being someone who managed to be alive to the age of 51, and still have a clear understanding of what it means to be, a man in this country, a man of color in this country, to be uh, to come from a community of just, to grow up poor in this country. Because I got to live in Trinidad and Tobago as a child as well. And
Oh,
one thing that,
really?
yeah, my family's Trinidadian, and one thing that really stood out is that, it was a blessing, because living in the Caribbean as a child, especially, afforded me the luxury of looking at the United States from the outside in rather than from the inside out. So
Mhm.
I know what it's like to walk down a street and be regarded an equal. I know what it's like to see a bunch of people gather around a television to celebrate people who look like me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I know what it feels like to see people who look like me on the money. Like, it gave me a sense of possibility that I think a lot of people didn't get until Barack Obama. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so,
Right.
um, uh, anyway, to answer your question, um, which I kind of forgot what it was, honestly, but I'm not really what I would necessarily consider an activist, but I am very conscious of the messaging, um, in our media, that's everywhere you look. It doesn't matter what color you are. You're being sold to all day. And part of an effective marketing strategy is to convince your audience, that, or your potential customer, that there is a void, that they have a lack, that they are inadequate, and then use your product to fulfill that lack, to fulfill that void, or to make them more adequate. That's just marketing. And if you're
Mhm.
inundated with it all day, especially the way in which they do it to people of color in this country, if you're inundated with that all damn day, what's probably going to happen is going to subconsciously or consciously tear down your self-esteem. It's going
Right.
to, you will find yourself you'll be excluding yourself from opportunity. You'll be excluding yourself from happiness. You'll be excluding yourself from your greatest potential subconsciously, and not even know why. Well, I believe that's part of why. It's called cultivation theory. You
Right.
sit down, vegging out in front of a television, absorbing messages subconsciously. It's one of the reasons you take a friggin' 5-year-old girl and you give her black girl and you give her a black doll and a white doll, you ask her to pick up
Right.
the bad one and she picks up the black doll.
Right.
Exactly why. It's just all the subconscious programming. It starts when you're in the womb, So um, all I can say is that uh, there is a lower level of consciousness uh, that seems to prevail in mainstream media, and it seems to prevail in our pop culture, and it
Right.
it it's it's sometimes detrimental to us as a society and us as a people. And I am just, I am the counter. I am countering that by making
Right.
movies that, rather than showing a person, rather than giving the audience the person that comes from the mud and just somehow blows up in the course of an hour and a half and is now the big successful person. No, I want to show you the psychological transition that has to occur in order to actually accomplish things in this world, in your life. The difference between achieving or attaining things, or attaining success, versus attaining fulfillment. I want to really help people understand the difference And it's something that's just not taught in our culture.
Right.
You know, we're a very result oriented, you know, we equate success to monetary gain, social status, and the acquisition of things. And if you really sit down and peep them all out, they're all synonymous with debt. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Right.
so people have bought that hook, line, and sinker. They've sold their family down that road, and here I am making a movie that's countering that whole thing. That's speaking a completely different way
Right.
of approaching life and of approaching the culture and of approaching fulfillment and of approaching success. It's actually redefining success. And so, like I said, I didn't make this movie for everybody. I sincerely
Right.
made it for a specific group.
Now, do you think that this is what you're going to contribute to the world, giving us films that we need to see, things to expose people that may not have a voice in this world?
I have a gift. I have a gift. My gift is I know how to make people laugh at the darkest things. And I've been doing that my whole career for other people. And so, yeah, whenever I have the time and the resources to make a movie, I'm going to make that kind of movie. I think that, hey, I don't, I've come to terms with the fact that it's not about pleasing everybody, and it's not about reaching everyone. I'm trying to meet the people. I'm messing with the people that's meeting me halfway,
Right.
right? And that's fine with me. Um, and with that being said, this is the route I want to go. I want to make more movies like this. I, the feedback that I get, man, the things that kids, man, dude, man, this woman had me dying the other day. She posted this thing on my Instagram, and I got hundreds of these now. The proof is in the pudding. You can just look at social media. She homeschools her two kids. She got a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old. And the 17-year-old had to do this assignment. But the assignment, he ended up writing like a full page paper. But the assignment was to write one paragraph. So she was like, you know what? You've given a lot of extra information in this. That's good information, but it's not necessary for the assignment. So I'm gonna need you to take it down. And her 15-year-old son butts in and goes, but wait a minute, why should he take it down? Tijuana Jackson said that what's expected of us is less. It's up to us to take the initiative to do more.
Wow.
And I was like,
Wow.
all right, I'm screenshotting that. And in fact, I told my whole team, when you come across stuff like this, I want you to screenshot it.
Right.
And so for me, Hollywood ain't gave me nothing. Hollywood ain't gave me nothing that resonates like that.
Right.
Nothing. So yeah, this is probably what I'm gonna be doing from now until folks ain't trying to hear it no more.
Now, I do have to get your opinion. You know, there's a lot of people talking about defunding the police. What is your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on it is that I think that a lot of people just really don't understand it. I think that what probably needs to happen is in the messaging, because defunding the police has been around for a long time. It's how the reason it's taking so much traction now. And I think that the miscommunication is that there are just a bunch of new people coming into it, and they don't really understand the messaging. What it sounds like is take money from the police. Well, the truth is that we fund our police in almost in a way quite similar to how we fund our military. There's like this excessive funding for you to police civilians. And this excessive funding is to a degree being abused if you haven't noticed, right? The relationship between civilian and police officers, the reputation of police officers and civilians, especially after these protests, and you had Caucasian people who are relatives of judges, who are relatives of attorneys, who are relatives of public officials out there experiencing the same fate as what Black people have been experiencing the entire time they've been on on this continent. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, whoa, hold up, this ain't right, right? So I'm like, okay, so now let's talk about it. I'll give you a prime example. They're talking about they want to cut all these expenses because they say that the post office, that business, it doesn't make money, right? It's costing us money. I'm like, okay, well, does the military cost us money?
Right. That's a good point.
Does law enforcement cost us money? And can we talk about whose money is it? Is it the
Mhm.
taxpayers' money? So let's just start there. Let's just develop an understanding that these things are in place because um, they're in place because we, as civilians, hardworking people, Americans, we finance these entities and they are in fact our employers,
Right.
right? So when we give it's a privilege for us to be able to finance your livelihood in the way that we do. But when those privileges are abused, you fall under scrutiny. And under that scrutiny, people have come to realize that possibly the training, the fact that we, not just the training, but the ethics, the fact that we allow people affiliated with white supremacist groups to join the police force and then police communities of color
Right.
in itself is gross negligence. It's a mishandling of funds.
Right.
So we're going, well, maybe if our first responders were people, or maybe even if we just had people who checked in on the physical or on the mental health of the people involved in some of these situations, maybe if there were counseling, maybe if there were uh, uh, resources so that people could deal with their ailments, their mental and psychological ailments better. Maybe if there were actually effective recreational centers that were put together so that we could actually teach our kids the etiquette and decorum, right, of what it means to simply be how to be in a classroom. Or maybe if we put a little bit more money into a classroom that afforded the kids the luxury of simply having heat, much less counselors, and actually having a consistent staff that felt appreciated and paid for what they were doing, maybe with just simple things like that, right? There'd be less of a need for crime. What people don't understand, and I know I'm getting all into it, but what people don't understand is they talk about all the violence in the Black community. Let's just get really, really clear. There's violence in every community, but let's make it, there's violence in every race has this black and black violence shit is a myth because we never hear, you get it. You know what I mean? It's, look,
Yeah.
the bottom line is this. If you are forced from day one to live in what's considered a high risk community, and by high risk community, I mean communities where our government deemed that people of color and immigrants are not going to be capable of paying off their loans. So we want to keep them away from Caucasians. So we're going to put them in these communities that are much more neglected, meaning these communities may be able to service the water supply to the community may be able to service 1,000 families. But now you've got 3,000 immigrant and people of families of color living in these communities. You have sanitation that's built to serve 1,000 families or 1,000 households, now having to serve 1,000 households, but still there's 3 times the population because of naivete from the history, from the lack of opportunity, also the naivete of first-time buyers, back going all the way back to the 1800s. If you do the research, what you'll find is when black people moved into a white neighborhood, which was
Yeah.
very rare, the value of the property went up because they charged the black people more. And then they run a whole scam like these black people are going to bring in more black people, it's going to ruin, and then they get everybody to sell their properties, and then they charge everybody that was of color that moved into the community 2 times more than they would charge anyone else, right? So
Right.
so let's just paint the real picture. So
Right.
if you are a financial predator and you're taking advantage of people in these quote unquote high risk communities, and then these communities are being over policed in the process. So that means 1 in 4 black males are being extracted from those communities and put into a prison system. That makes it even more difficult to pay the bills in that mug because, well, let's keep it 100. You just took out the major, quite often the main source of household income,
Right.
right? So now instead of 2 sources of household income, we've got 1, right? Left for child rearing and everything else. It's all up to this one individual. But let's go even further than that. Let's dig into the fact that the educational system is directly affected by, right,
Yeah.
the property tax. Federal and state provides funds, and those funds are often distributed incorrectly. So let's keep going. So now you have kids that are being not only deprive a male figure in the household, you've got a huge portion of children that are being denied just a fair education. But
Yeah.
let's not stop there. Let's just continue with it. Help me to understand why the world doesn't understand that statistically, a child who's raised in that type of environment is going to be 5 times more likely to join a gang.
Right.
So if so, just to do the math, if America says, if statistics show, if studies are showing that 80% of crime in America is attributed to gangs, and 46% of violent crime in America is attributed to gangs, what's the real problem? I
Right.
think the real problem is finding a way to steer kids away and people away from gang culture. That
Right.
that's that's actually that's actually a root solution, is actually getting there. So if you reverse engineer it now, you can actually look at it and see that a big part of why children join gangs in the first place is because of the fact that they're lacking a sense of safety. They're not sure how their mother or their siblings are going to eat. They want to belong to some sense of community, right?
Hmm.
There's no other incentives. So what if we took some of that, what if we took some of that money that we were using to remedy that problem, the war on
Right.
drugs, right?
Hmm.
And what if we just used it differently? Doesn't mean that we stop regulating. We just use the money differently. We maybe took more preventative measures instead of coming after the fact and just using brute force.
That's a great point. My only concern when I hear that is that those funds that they take never go to the people who actually need it. Now we have to work on making sure the funds that are taken from the police or defunding the police actually help the community and not align pockets of these predators. You talked about predators. How do we make sure that the funds go to the people who actually need it?
Well, let's just start with where the money's going now.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I'll tell you what, no matter what you do, it's going to be a risk.
Right.
But what I don't want to go back to, what I don't want to sustain is, I do not want white supremacists, open, vocal white supremacists policing communities of color.
Right.
That's where the money is right now.
Okay.
And 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 they're hiding behind qualified immunity.
Yeah.
So let's work on that. Let's figure out how to, what's the right word? Appropriate. How do we? What's the right word?
When you say reallocate,
Reallocate. That's the word I'm looking for. To reallocate those funds. Well, let's figure that out, because
right.
right now I'm willing to take a gamble on moving some of that money elsewhere, and gamble that it hope maybe 60% chance that it'll get to where it needs to get to, 40% chance that some people will rip it off. I don't know, but I do know that what it's currently funding is not even a gamble. It's guaranteed destruction of a community. It's guaranteed genocide.
Right. That's a
That's
great
it.
point. I know we got off topic, but I do have to ask you,
No,
would you vote for Kanye?
would I vote for Kanye?
That is the question.
That's funny.
So getting back on the movie, just tell everyone I will definitely watch it tonight. Is there anything else you would like our readers or our viewers to know about you, or what's next for you?
I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia. Today was my last day of quarantine here because I go back to work on my show, A Million Little Things. And so I start filming that. It's a drama. I'm going in my third season. It's a hit drama on ABC about a man dealing with depression, a black man dealing with depression. And so I feel I'm proud of it. It's a project that I'm very proud of because my team has been very sensitive and conscious about communicating the right messages, but also, like, I feel like this show has really helped make the discussion of depression Black men dealing with depression more mainstream.
Oh,
You know?
wow. Okay.
Oh yeah. Even Joe Budden was like, "Yo, I started it. First 5 minutes, I had to hit pause. Like, whoa, I love hearing that. That
Wow.
makes me happy." Yeah. I saw his tweet and I was like, "Yes." Um, but yeah, so I go back to doing that. And this movie that just came out, I'm going to be promoting, obviously, is like I said, it's a darker sense of humor. I'm telling you, it's a departure from what I've been seeing. In as far as black film, my film is certainly a departure from what I've been seeing. And also just a departure from how Hollywood likes to tell stories. We like to put nice buttons on
Hmm.
things, and
Right.
every character has a huge revelation, and then everything's. I'm not that dude, and it's gonna piss a lot of people off, but I'm not that dude, and that's cool. You can get plenty of those movies. They all over Hollywood.
Right. So you sound like a man with a purpose.
Ah, without a question. I wouldn't have made this movie if I didn't have it. I wouldn't have ever created this character. I wouldn't be doing this on YouTube if I didn't have a sense of purpose. And I think it's important that like most of us understand that like purpose is usually probably the most fulfilling path to be on, because you know don't find, like what the character says, man, don't seek success, seek purpose, let success find you. And it definitely seems to be working for me.
Well, I definitely like to thank you. I will have to say I am very unaware of some of the stuff you've been doing, but you have a fan. You are one of the very few people that I interview, and you're like, oh, you walk away really liking them more than you walked in the room. So I
Oh,
definitely appreciate. I definitely will start following you a lot more. I appreciate everything that you're doing, and we definitely need a lot of black men like you out here spreading the word and making films that people can really look at and inspire our community.
no, I really appreciate that. I'm just curious to know. Well, then, what made you want to interview me in the first place? I'm just curious.
Because well, it came across. I had seen you in other movies like the Think Like a Man, and so I was familiar with some of your work, but
Uh-huh.
I was just like wasn't really like I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't really familiar with everything that you've done, but I've seen you like the 40-year-old virgin, and so I've seen you in things, but I just never. And when you came across, I was like, oh. And then when I watched the trailer, I was planning on watching the movie before I interviewed you, but this week has been really crazy. So when I saw the trailer, I was like, okay, this is about prison. It kind of connects with what I focus on because and so, I deal with a lot of inmates. So when I watched it, I was like, oh, and then I went online and I was like, okay, so let me just see this. And so that is exactly why. And then I'm so happy that I did because I'm very impressed with you and
Oh,
excited
thank
to
you.
see your future.
No, I really appreciate it. I'm excited too. And I just wanted to let you and everybody know that I appreciate you having me on your platform. Say what up to the homies when you get back, to the team. And also let everybody know that this movie is available on Amazon, iTunes. It's available on Fandango, Vudu. It's available on Apple TV. It's on demand pretty much anywhere you look.
Right.